is Ronda Rousey trolling us? Now, I want you to hear me out. The Rock went to Vince McMahon. He said, I want $2 million. Vince looked at The Rock, said, how'd you come up with that number? So The Rock said, well, Austin is the top guy, Stone Cold, and he's getting $1 million. And where I see myself going, I would like $2 million. Vince said, all right, I understand that way of thinking. Now, I can't agree to the two, but let's stay on the same page here. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to spend the next 4 months, and I want you to just be a wrestler. Wrestling, they call that making towns. Making towns is a fun way of saying getting on an airplane and checking into the hotel and getting to the arena, doing your match, getting out, getting to the next city, right? Rinse and repeat. Wrestling business. But Vince says, I don't want you to do that. I want you to start showing up to the venue early when they're setting up. When they're setting up the ring, I want you to be there. I want you to be in catering. I want you to come to production meetings. I want you to learn this business so that you can see it from my standpoint. Like as easy as it might say for you to give me $2 million, I would like you, Rock, to see what has to be done for me to have that $2 million. And moreover, if I'm giving you two, to make sure there's room for me and the production and the setup and the guys that put the ring together, right? Very interesting thing by Vince, but it was a very big opportunity for Rock. Like, Rock wanted to learn the business. It's one of the reasons he's on the board of directors today. He wanted to learn the business, not just the psychology and the X's and O's of wrestling. Rock wanted to do this. This was great. Rock goes and does it. He goes and spends his, what I'm going to call 4 months, learns it, comes back. Vince said, how'd the experiment go? Rock says it went great. And I'm seeing this and I'm seeing what's going into it. And Vince says, all right, great. Well, now that you've done that, I'm going to give you $12 million. I offer you this because I appreciate that story so much. And I tie that in with an interview that was just done by Ronda Rousey. Now, Ronda is a worker. She didn't fully understand that in MMA. She was a competitor. But she went over to the pro wrestling business and she kind of started to learn the importance of getting in emotion. So when she does interviews now, being armed with the idea that she is not just a competitor, she is now a performer. She is now an entertainer. She understands a different level. I have to choose how I want to interpret her interviews. Should I take them straight on or should I take them with a grain of salt? Because she's putting out interviews that are beyond ridiculous, but they have my attention. Is that the goal? Some of the kids call that trolling. Is that the goal? To go out and say something that is headline worthy and that's how you set up your next interview. That's really smart. That's a great way to go about things, particularly when you're promoting an event, which she is. And you got to find an angle, by the way, to make believe that there's a reason that she's fighting Gina Carano is really tough. And I know us and on this channel, we're hardcores. I'm a hardcore. You guys are hardcores. For you guys to go onto YouTube, subscribe, click on this each day and see what old Chael has to say, you have to really care. You're not just stumbling across. So you might have a little nostalgia, as do I, towards Gina Carano, towards Ronda, remembering those days in Strikeforce, remembering how they missed each other, remembering that the weight classes had issues. Remember that Ronda had this incredible skill set and Gina had this marketability that, right, like, I mean, but you are going back in time. And it's not something that I believe Ronda and or Gina could carry on a meaningful media tour speaking about why are we here. There's not a championship on the line. Neither one of them needs the money and is falling on hard times, right? Like the story's a little bit harder to tell, so you start to go in a little bit different direction. Ronda, as a matter of fact, said, look, the real story here is MVP versus UFC. Now, the reason I say that that's ridiculous is there's not MVP versus UFC, and there's not even anything that's been revealed to the audience that MVP is planning to expand meaningfully into MMA. From everything that we know and we've been told, big event. They're in the big event business, which is very fun, by the way. It's a very nice way to go about business, not having all these different obligations and having to line up contracts and make sure one show parlays into another show. It's very nice. We can all have a really good time with this. But what Ronda is suggesting is something very different. Now, when she says it's MVP head-to-head with the UFC, another level of ridiculous to that statement is the UFC is not going that night. Oh, and by the way, you want to make sure that they don't play that night. You do not want to poke the bear to the point that you get counter-programmed. And whether you come out on top of that or not, it's going to make a dent, and that is not where you want to go. All right. Now, Ronda is also talking about the money. And she was saying that the UFC was interested in me and Gina until they weren't. They were interested until they did this new Paramount deal. And the model of pay-per-view went away and they lost a little bit of interest. Now, I wasn't part of that conversation, but I could imagine it. All right, Dana gets a call. It's Ronda, who's his friend. He's not in business with Ronda and has not been in business with Ronda for a meaningful amount of time. So he's answering a phone call on it with a different mindset, right? Hey, how are you doing? Throws out an idea. Hey, I want to get back in shape. I want a reason to train. I want a reason to do this. And I think I found it. Gina Carano. Hey, would you be interested? Yeah, I'd be interested. Well, in Ronda's mind, there's all sorts of things that I would be interested mean. And in Dana's mind, there's all sorts of things that I would be interested mean. But neither one of them voiced them. And there wasn't a proper negotiation. There wasn't a proper discussion. But I could only imagine how that went. By example, if you're in Dana's spot, yes, I would be interested in hosting you and Gina. If you, in fact, could actually pull that off. But you've got a built-in mechanism where you really haven't committed yourself. And the built-in mechanism is, hey, you know that we only do 135-pound women. We no longer have a 45-pound category. We never had a 55-pound category. And you and I both also know you and Gina collectively cannot make 135 pounds. So when I tell you that I am interested, I'm being nice to a degree. I'm encouraging you to pursue your dream. I'm encouraging you to get back into shape. Am I committing that I'm actually going to put this event on? Well, there again, you know, I only do as high as 135. So if our next conversation is that you can't get to 135, I mean, do you see where there's a built-in out where you could be polite and you could be civil and you could be non-committal? So then things change a little bit. You know, hey, no, I'm serious. I talked to Gina. She's in. I'm in. I'm back in the gym. She's in the gym. We're going to fight. God said, hey, this isn't going to work for us. And you don't need to get into the X's and O's and the finances of it. We do 135-pound matches. If one of you comes out on top at 135, I would like to use that to then spill into a Kayla and Amanda. Right? It's just one of these things. But Ronda's standpoint was, it was the money. The pay-per-view model went away. What we were projecting to do for pay-per-view, I would just like as a guarantee. That's a reasonable response by Ronda. In fact, that's the responsible response by Ronda, but the suggestion that the fight was lost because of the changing of models, I don't know that I agree with that. And I have heard a number of people come into it, the UFC, all the way from my side of it, with commentators going, hey, I get some more money because you guys got this $8 billion deal. You can afford it. Well, you can afford it is not a respectable negotiating tactic. It's just not. Can I cover the spread? I want $15 million to fight. Okay, great. Are you going to sell $15 million in tickets? Are you going to sell that in merchandise? Are you going to sell it with a combination of tickets and merchandise? Are you going to sell it with a combination of tickets, merchandise, and sponsors? Like, you're right. There's a lot that goes into it. And it's very easy to put your hand out and go, pin me, pay me. But if it was that easy to do events, you wouldn't be calling a promoter. You don't have cameras. You don't have a relationship with somebody to put the event on yourself. Many people have thought about doing that. Francis was going to start a promotion agency. Conor McGregor was going to start a promotion agency. Like, you find out there's a little bit more to it. And when you do have that story of how Vince handled this, Vince told The Rock, hey, I'm not against your number, but I want you to go out and I want you to see what it takes to have that number. To see what it takes to have to feed an entire roster, no matter what happens once we make a deal, I've got to cover the spread, you don't. And I really liked that Vince did that, and so did The Rock. And it worked. And The Rock got his quote. And The Rock got more than his quote, but The Rock learned something. And it's one of the reasons he's on the board. And I don't see MMA fighters doing that, but I think there's an opportunity there.